Hello and welcome to another video blog, this one about the book of Judges and a page within it. I'm recording it today, and tomorrow is the big launch, which is the 9th of September, when the book of Judges and the book of Ruth will be available primarily through our website, which is wordforwordbiblecomic.com. You can come and buy it there in hard, physical or digital formats. But today, we're just going to have a look at a page from Judges 14. So this is the page. Let's see the page in full, and then we're just going to look at each panel as we go. It's a page that I've chosen because there's quite a lot of sort of historical research elements in this particular page, and quite a bit kind of different things to look at, basically. Now, starting with this page, this is where Samson's holding a sort of wedding feast, and so we can see Samson there laying out the food. He himself is wearing like a turban and his simla and a robe and things like that. He's not wearing what he often wears, which is just kind of like a shirt and a kind of kilt and a sash, which most of the time he wears. He's wearing kind of formal clothing in this, is his wedding. In the background we can see a little idol, and that's because he's in the home of the Philistines. This is an example of what it's drawn from. These are the sorts of idols that they had in the Mycenaean ones, and in Crete at the time. So that's what it's in a little alcove. It's like a little house god. In the Bible we hear a lot about these house gods that they have. Moving on, you can also see some Philistine pottery here and here. This one is like a juglet. We see it again in another panel, but it's got all the patterns. It's quite an interesting shape. It's got the pouring handle on the side, and then the lip here. It's got these little holes so that the drink that's inside, whether it's beer or wine, gets filtered as it comes through. And here's it's actually a bowl, but it's quite a lot like their little cups. Let's bring that up. Here's the cup. Again, lots of decoration on the Philistine things, and so here's a little cup, and we can see them again as they come up in the next panels. But lots of decoration. So the Philistines, they have everything's decorated, painted on. They've got lines and these sort of shapes, these swirly shapes and zigzags, and often there's a lot of spirals and things like that. So spirals is something that I use to like on them a lot, to kind of identify them, make them stand out as different to the Israelites, who just have quite unadorned clothing, and whereas the Philistines have quite bright and decorated clothing. In the background here, you can see the saddlebags from the donkey, which were in the previous panel, and then the feast itself. It's got some fruit, some little sort of pastry things, a lamb and rice, a big platter of rice and everything, and maybe some dates and things like that on there. And in the background you've got Manoah meeting the father of the bride, and the bride there. They're talking about the marriage. Then moving on, the next panel we've got Samson being introduced to his companions, and in this panel you can see, although they're small, and you'll be able to see in the next panels as well, these kind of robes that they wear. It's actually quite hard to find pictures of Philistines that aren't at war, but I managed to find an image here of them, which is again from an Egyptian source. But you can see these robes that they wear, and earrings and these sashes that are tied in this sort of special way, and they wrap around, and even the shoes that they wear, which show up again and again. Also they have these bracelets and upper arm bracelets that they wear. It's another distinctive which often shows up in the comic, as you can see here. So this is the father-in-law. He's also got the spirals there, as I said before, and there's the building in the background. Here's an example of Philistine building, which we researched. Not very complicated, just a flat roofed sort of building. They all connect together, and that's what we've got there. And moving on, this panel has the wedding procession itself. Now, I researched the wedding rituals of the different cultures. So Jewish weddings are quite unique, and also I looked at a book which had information about the ancient Mycenaean weddings, and they had these torchlit processions at night. So just sort of the night before the wedding, they go through the town. Everybody get to see the bride and groom, and so we've got them here. You've got Samson, and on an ox-drawn cart, basically. The ox-drawn cart is quite a Philistine thing that shows up in some of the paintings and carvings of them. Also the flowers which they adorn the cart with, these are local to Israel. You can see the father of bride here, and this chap here is the companion, who is significant in the story later on, and we'll have another look at him in a minute. And then this is the first instance of this character. This character here, we'll see him again in a moment. He basically represents the Philistines who oppose Samson. So he's like one guy who shows up again and again and kind of speaks for the people who don't really like this wedding going on, as it transpires in the story. So yeah, got a moonlit procession there. She's wearing a veil. This is a tradition which actually is kind of shared, I think, between the this culture and the Israelite culture, of when they get married, they are given like a veil. The girls become like a wife, and then they put a veil upon their heads. You can see that her wedding attire is based again on the sort of Mycenaean or what's the other word? The Minoan culture, and there's lots of nice murals at Knossos where they have the women, again it's roughly the same time period, and those are the ones that I've used for this, because there's depictions of Philistines men, and there are depictions of Mycenaean men, and actually you can see that they're very much the same, but there aren't any depictions of Philistine women, but there are depictions of Mycenaean women, so it's been therefore inferred that they would look like the same. Let's have a look at a picture. Here's one sort of famous mural from Knossos. Now the thing about it is that the women, their clothing, they have all the braided hair and jewellery and that sort of thing, but they actually are open fronted. So you can see here, that's the style of the Minoan women, that the front of their garments is open. And so in the comic, actually original time when I drew the first few pages where they came out, I wanted to keep it as accurate as possible, so they did have open fronted garments, but in order to keep it so that it would be appropriate for a sort of wider audience, I decided that actually, because there were other examples where the breasts were covered, that would use that. But in this one, I've got the kind of open fronted garment, but the veil itself, a bit like a mermaid's hair, comes down to cover up her breasts. So basically it is accurate to the time period, but then it's got the covering as well. She has white makeup and these little suns painted on. There's Minoan culture again, where there's a bust of a woman with the white face and these things painted on. They don't really know why, whether it's like a princess or whether she's a priestess or something like that, but effectively I've used it here as a nice thing that implies that she's wearing this special makeup, sort of sacred makeup for a wedding, and just makes it more interesting. So let's scroll down, and this panel, I need to span out. Got the Philistines and Samson having their feast, and the word feast up here that appears that Samson sets up for them in the Hebrew does imply that actually it's one involving a lot of drinking, like a knees up or something like that. It doesn't just imply it's a feast, it actually kind of means that they would be drinking. Now Samson, of course, is not allowed to drink. He's a Nazarite from birth, and the Nazarite, the prescriptions of the Nazarite are in Numbers 6, and one of them, of course, being that he won't drink. This is part of what the angel obviously tells his mother as well. In the story of Samson, it seems as though he goes through the prescriptions of his vow and basically breaks all the parts. So we make a big deal of the fact that his hair gets cut, but he's not allowed to touch dead bodies, not allowed to drink or alcohol or do a number of other things basically. And he does go, it seems he goes through and basically does break his vow. In the comic, what we do is where these things are implied, they're implied in the story, but they're not made explicit if they're not made explicit in the text. So he's drinking here, and when so in a minute his drink gets spilled, and what I've done is basically shown it as kind of clear liquid, so it could be white wine, or it could be water or juice or something else, but so it's not explicit that he's drinking wine, but it does certainly seem so. He's got his little cup, and then you can see the pottery again. You see a Philistine sort of warrior back here, and his companions. Now this is the guy I was talking about a moment ago, who represents the Philistines who dislike Samson, and this guy is the companion who later on in the story takes Samson's place. So if you know the story. Now you can see again he's got the spirals decorating the chair. He's on a sort of little throne there in the middle of them all, as the bride, and they're having a joke and stuff. They've got Philistine patterns on all these different things that adorn the Philistines, so they're identifiable. And also the colour scheme of the Philistines is these kind of oranges, terracotta-y colours, and actually there are images of them which are in colour, so you can see, and they have these oranges and reds and kind of golden colours, as well as some sort of aqua colours like here that they wear. It's a nice sort of contrast. And moving down, this is the guy, and he is the one who's threatening the wife, who to say, if they don't find this is because Samson gives the riddle, and he's saying unless she tells them the answer to the riddle, they're going to kill her basically. So that's him. And then of course here when he speaks, you can see that the text is in this font. So inspired by Asterix, which used to do this sort of thing. When people speak in a different language, they use a very different font. And coming from the Aegean, the Philistines speaking kind of Proto-Greek, so this typeface represents the idea that that's the language that they're speaking, and that they're speaking to each other in a different language than they're speaking at other times. So here the bride speaks to Samson, but she again is speaking in the standard font, so sort of she's speaking to him in Hebrew, but here they're talking to each other in Philistine. So then she cries to him. We covered all the aspects there, I think, already. Then she nags him, and then they get the secret, give him the answer to the riddle. And this is the part I was talking about with the drink where it gets spilled. So the drink spills out, and it's clear, so it could be white wine. But again, you've got these two guys are quite surprised that Samson's so annoyed. They don't necessarily expect him to have a big reaction, but this guy in the background kind of does expect it, because he's set it up here. He's threatened the wife, and he knows what's going on. And then Samson storms out at the end. So that pretty much covers all the elements of the page. There's quite a lot of like I say, historical things there, and all the elements that we've talked about. You can, as I said at the start, you can buy your own copy of the Book of Judges and the Book of Ruth now on our website. You can also go there and sign up to the newsletter, follow the blog, see more information about it, more examples, and it also linked to more videos like this one. So thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you there.